my students as we're going forward. Um, as we kind of jump in here real quick, I just want to thank you guys for joining us. This is part of all of you. I'm assuming because y'all got this email signed up for the free trial through Computer Science Teachers, which is part of the which as a free trial is you're part of the premium curriculum up through May 15th, and part of the premium curriculum is getting these every 2 weeks we get together for free trainings or for these trainings and just to touch base. A lot of times we'll do them on camera with each other just to touch base with each other, ask questions, see how things are going. With the premium curriculum, you get all the curriculum that's in there plus these free trainings. Right now, I do have a special going. My wife's going to post that into the thing. If you're thinking about signing up, right now it's $49 a month, but with the special, if you sign up for 3 months, it's $97 for the 3 months, and that just renews forever. You get in at that rate. And then this summer we'll also be doing, especially for a lot of the first year and second year teachers and third year teachers. We'll be doing some trainings. We're putting those together right now, either weekly or every other week. But we'll be doing trainings that will really walk you through the curriculum and have you so you're up and ready to run. So when the next school year hits, you can just jump in and use everything. So that's in there if you want to check it out. But I appreciate you guys being here with us tonight. One last question I'm going to throw out because so the College Board had a session with Trevor 2 nights ago. I can't remember what today is. I think it was 2 nights ago. How many of you guys actually saw that? Type in there yes if you saw it, or no if you did not see the what they covered, because I'm going to cover some things with that they covered on there. But I kind of want to see where everybody's at with that. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to run through some highlights of that. We won't spend a lot of time on that because a lot of you guys saw it, but just as reminding things too. And if you guys, as I'm going through it, if you guys or girls remember something that I don't remember from that training, just or from that webinar, put it in the chat. So just some quick highlights. I just wrote down, we'll spend like 5 minutes on this, just some quick highlights going through there. But he said the big thing for this week, for the next 2 weeks, that you need to be doing with your students is making sure that they are they're just covering the things that are going to be on the test with them. And then also the big thing they had said was if you have any students that don't or that need technology, if you're at a school or any type of things where they need technology, they don't have a tablet, they don't have a phone, they don't have a way to do this test, the College Board will provide that for them. And there's a link, and Deanna, if you'll type this link into, it's cb.org/tech. If you go there, there's a form you can fill out specifically for them. This is the College Board's link. If you need to request anything from them, but they need you to do that as soon as possible so that they can get your students anything they need. On April 28th, so that's 2 weeks from today, they're going to be releasing a set of slides, videos, etc. that's going to guide students through the testing. So they didn't really cover a whole lot still about the testing and how it's going to take place. They've covered some, but on April 28th, we're supposed to have everything we need at that point. So slides that you can use, videos that's going to train the kids, a guide, a way the students can practice. They're also going to give your students a worksheet for them to fill out that's going to give them like step-by-step what they need to do to log in that day, so that by the time they log in that day, they've practiced it, they know what they're doing, and they can log in. It says another thing is the students are going to receive an electronic ticket by email. That if they lose that email, though, that it's going to be also on the AP Classroom site, that they can go on the AP Classroom site, and this is going to give them into the telling us to tell our students that they need to arrive 15 to 30 minutes before the exam starts to pass security checks and to be put in a waiting room. So what'll happen is, I know, is my video styling out a little bit? Okay, sorry about that. But y'all can hear me, right? So just type yes if y'all can hear me good still. Okay. So your students are going to have to do a security check. So make sure that they know not to show up right when the test is starting. They're going to have some, according to what he said, this is all stuff for security. They're going to have some things for them to type out, to check how they're typing, because they're trying to see to make sure how's the student. They're trying to, like, I guess the idea is for security, see how a student types and how they do their things, and they're able to tie that into security for the test. So they're going to run them through some things at the beginning. and then put them into a waiting room. And so if they're in that waiting room when it starts, then they'll have the full time. But if they have to run through stuff, they may miss time if they're not in there. This was one that stuck out to me, and that I'm telling my students is because I had to retell my students something. I was telling my students that I thought it would be pretty easy, that they'd probably make the test so that the students could finish it all in one sitting. Well, according to what he said, is that they're going to have so much on the test that students aren't going to be expected to finish it all in one sitting, or not. I'm sorry, not all in one sitting, but during that time. And he said specifically, there will be more than you can answer, and you can get a 5 without answering all the questions. And so, for our students not to freak out that, hey, I'm not going to be able to answer it all, they're actually expecting them not to answer everything on here, and they can still get a 5 even if they don't finish. And so, not to rush through the test because they feel like pressure to finish everything. So that was something I had to backtrack on my students and tell them. Also, to make sure they submit on time, it'll be 25 minutes. After the 25 minutes are up, they will have 5 minutes to submit their documents or whatever they've created these in. And so when they create them, when they create these documents, they can write out by hand. They can take a picture, or they actually said that they did a survey. 70% of students are going to be using Google Docs and 15% Microsoft Word. And so I don't know. Really quick, type into the chat for me. Tell me what you guys are you mostly using with your students, like Google Docs, Microsoft Word, or something else, just so I can have an idea too as we kind of go through what we're doing. But they said that overall, 70% of the students are going to be using Google Docs, or that's what they surveyed them, which is kind of interesting. JGrass. Okay. The big question that they did ask this one, they said, because that hasn't been really clear. One of the things that's going to be new this year on the AP test is there's going to be an open-ended question part, so they're going to have their free response. They're going to have an open-ended part. And they asked in the training, they said, what does that really mean? Here was their response. Their response was something like, so they're going to have to answer a question about how does this program change or evolve depending on a new functionality. So they're going to give them a new functionality, and they're going to have to explain how the program changed or evolved. Now, that's still probably about as clear as mud to us. And then their response beyond that was there's going to be more info to follow. So yes, there is. So there's an option to, they can handwrite it, and then they can use their phones to take a picture of it and upload the picture. And so the ways that they can do that is they can copy and paste into their information from a Google Doc into their to whatever they're providing, their testing environment they're providing, that they can copy and paste into there, or they can take a picture and upload it that way, or they think they're going to be able to upload maybe even a file. We're going to get more information on that April 28th, but definitely handwriting it and taking a picture with their phones is still a way to go with that. Questions came. What do we tell students? Can they write an IDE like NetBeans and copy and paste? They said yes, you can do that. That question was specifically asked. They said you are allowed to use IDE. They did say that that the way it's going to be written, the IDEs probably aren't going to be beneficial to them. Like they're probably not going to find more benefit in using an IDE versus handwriting. And I actually, when I met with my students this week, I encouraged them not to use an IDE, even though they were allowed to. My fear with them using an IDE is that they're going to get caught up with fixing little syntax errors. Okay, I lost a semicolon, I misspelled this word. This is, my loop didn't run how it's going to, and then if they're bringing in classes, are they trying to build a class on the outside? Is it reading this? And then I think that's going to throw my students off more. And so so when they're doing their FRQs, I'm not having them use IDEs right now. And I'm going to have mine. They can use them. I'm not there with them, but I'm encouraging them, saying don't use an IDE because I think that's going to throw you off. But they are definitely can do that because they're just going to be copying and pasting into it. It is open book. Yeah, so she said hers are just typing in JGraphs and not compiling. That's perfect. Yeah. I would just encourage them and say, don't try to compile because you are, or if you do, like if you get errors, I'd be more worried about in 25 minutes my students losing points because they're tracking down small errors and stuff. Is there another question? Okay. Uh, they did say slow upload. Or what they meant by slow upload is don't let your students freak out. They have 5 minutes to upload, but if they are on a slow internet connection and it's uploading slowly, even if it doesn't get uploaded in that amount of time, and the next question automatically starts. So the way they said this runs is you have 25 minutes and it runs. The timer starts. At 25 minutes, it's going to open up 5 minutes for them to upload. If they do not upload within that 5 minutes, they get no credit for that at all. Like they can't turn it in late. So they have to make sure they upload it within 5 minutes. But if they've started the upload, it's like uploading in the background, but it's a slow internet connection. It'll still upload even after the 5 minutes. So it'll after that 5 minutes, it'll move on to the second question. Um, but even if it's not uploaded, it will still upload in the background. And so once it's submitted, it will upload no matter what. So if they're working, something to tell your students to not freak out about it. So if there's working and something happens, which will happen, and they said they're expecting this to happen, but they'll have, uh, you know, whatever, a parent in the background that's, streaming something else using the computer, their computer dies, or, their internet goes down, or there's an earthquake and they specifically said there's an earthquake and they have to leave, or whatever it is, something happens that distracts them during the exam where they can't finish the exam. They will have the opportunity to fill that out at the end. If they can get to the very end, they can fill that out at the end and submit that and request a different test date. And so if they do that, they're allowed to, if they request a different test date, and they can justify it, they can actually be given a later test date if that happens. They also have a worksheet that they can fill out if something happens where they can't get to the end, that they can submit also to the College Board. So the College Board is kind of looking out for that. And so, yeah, that was my last thing. If something goes wrong, they can report it at the end about not having a fair testing environment, etc. So those are kind of the things that they pulled, that I kind of pulled from that meeting. They're going to give us a lot more info at April 28th, including testing systems we can run through with our kids, the environment to use, different things so that we're ready to go, and our students are ready to go. So in the next 2 weeks, we should know that. Those are kind of my main points. If anybody, yeah, so Melanie asked if I can talk more about the open-ended question. Throw any questions like that in there, or if you were in that meeting and there was a point that you were like, whoa, he should have said this, that we should all know, throw that in there too. Those are kind of the main points I caught. But throw any questions that you have or any thing I might have missed on there. So more about the open-ended question. So they asked Trevor that, or they asked, the AP board that, and on that call, and he specifically said, that what they said was, how does the program change or evolve depending on new functionality? Like, I guess they'll have a program where you write it out, but then they're going to say, so if this, who knows what they're going to say? My guess is something like, hey, so if this was an array of, strings instead of doubles, how would you have to change this up to compare value? I don't know. I think it could be a question based off that. They weren't really clear. And the only clarity beyond that was, we will give you more info to follow, when they said that. So, so I'm kind of in that same boat you are, but I'm assuming it could be something like that. What they're really checking is they're wanting to make sure your students understand the code and didn't get it from somewhere else. And so if they're changing it up and, and kind of throwing kind of a different nuance at it, where you're having to explain it, that's one way that they can security check it. I did forget to mention this. I didn't write this in my notes, but they're really, they talked a lot about the cheating aspect, that they have a lot of things in place that they're not talking about. They said they've actually already caught a student cheating. And it was a physics student. They've already caught preparing to cheat, and they've already busted them for it, And so they have things going on out there to really encourage our students. It's not worth cheating, different things that they're going to use, and that if you are caught, they're going to send you that information to all the colleges that you have requested to send SAT scores to, or AP exam scores to, that your colleges will actually receive a notification that you were caught cheating on these. And so, important to tell our students it's not worth cheating, and going from there on that. And so, what are the lockdown browser can't be used? Yes, lockdown browsers. They said they won't be using lockdown browser for this. I think that question was on there, and so they don't want them to use lockdown browser, because what they actually said is that it's considered open note, open whatever. So every student has the same open ability to, they can Google answers, they can use whatever they want except for each other. And so um, that's kind of how the AP board's approaching that. So that being the case, the questions are going to be based on, you can't just Google the answers. It'll be more interesting. I mean, honestly, when they say more info to come, it probably means that they're still putting that together. I know that they're in a rush putting all this together, and I'm sure they're not done with it yet, which is why we don't have it. But their goal is April 28th to do that. So, any last questions on that? Everything good? So yeah, okay. Sorry, I know my video, at least I'm watching it on my wife's over here. Maybe it's because we're doing ours, but it's kind of stalling out a little bit. But we're going to keep running through it. I'm going to share my screen here in a second with you. So we're going to jump into, I guess, a quick question. I know some of you guys could have done this because y'all were in here the last session, but how many of you guys have started doing FRQ with your students, like review already? So type in there if yes, and how many weeks you've been doing specifically FRQ review if you are doing that. Like if you're 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, just starting, etc. Okay, so Laura said she's got 2 weeks of just FRQ review going in. Awesome. No one else? Okay. Kathy's just starting. So Kristen, you said just started prior to closing and assigning one this week. Are you just, Kristen, are you just starting online this week, or have you been online for a while? As she's writing them there, Melanie said she's finished inheritance this week. So Kristen said just technically just started this first week. Cool. And Melanie, yeah, it finished inheritance this week and gave FRQ this week. I know it isn't covered on exam, but finished it. Yeah, the inheritance. Yeah, I'm trying to think of how to answer that. Inheritance. I know interfaces aren't on the exam, and 2D arrays aren't on the exam officially. Inheritance, I think, of extending classes is. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong with that. Now they did say that the two questions were going to be array lists and method and control. So so we'll have a question on array lists, and we'll have a question on method and controls statements. But so inheritance might not be on there, but I was thinking that inheritance being like extending classes would be on there. I think they are actually on there. So they do, I think, need to know that. So it's good for you to cover that. But yeah, definitely interfaces, interfaces, abstract classes are not on there. So if you're covering interfaces with your students or abstract classes with your students, those will not be on there for sure. But just regular inheritance is on there, etc. Okay. So what I'm going to do, if again, throw questions in, and my wife will interrupt as we kind of go along. And so what I'm going to do is kind of walk through what you can be doing, or what I've done the last couple of weeks, and what you can be doing, and what I'm going to be doing the next couple of weeks with my students. The good thing for me is I've taught AP CSA online for like the last 5 years. So I'm doing stuff I've done with my students in the past. Of course, we're not doing MCQ this time. So it's a little bit different. And so it's kind of new. But the other part that's new for me is I'm having students that are classroom students that have moved online, which is actually different for me than just teaching regular online. But I'm going to show you kind of what I've been doing and even learning as I've gone with my students. As we're doing this, what I think would be cool too is, and as I'm kind of sharing, if you'll put in the chat some things that that have been good for you, like that that have been like that have really worked for you, some success stories that you've actually found that have worked for you. So Laura said inheritance is unit 9, and that's not on there. Okay. Yeah, I might check. I'll check that too again. Thanks, Laura. You may be 100% be right on that. I do know though that like some of the FRQs show are like inheritance, like this class is inheriting that, or maybe not. Let me do that. Yeah, I'll check on that. And 100%, but Laura, you may be completely right. And I'll check on that too. Thank you, Laura, for that one. Um, okay. So yeah, throw some success, throw some things that have actually you found as an online teacher has worked for you really well. Whether it's with FRQ or something in Classroom or whatever it is that's worked. For an example, I'm going to throw this out. I'm going to give you a fail that I've done, and then what's worked for me, and then kind of you can throw in some examples. So 2 weeks ago, in our last call, somebody asked me, "Hey, am I doing online meetings with my students?" And I said, "No, I've been recording videos, and my students have been just kind of following that." Um, so my students got back to me, and that's worked always because I've done that with my online classes. Well, my students got back to me this week on Monday. They emailed me and they actually begged me to have a session with them, a live session. And so I was like, okay. So I scheduled one for Tuesday, and we had our first live session with them. And they told me, and they said, well, while we like the videos, we need the interaction back and forth with you. We need you to walk through an FRQ with us where we can get feedback back and forth. And I hadn't been doing that with them, even though I'd been doing that with my videos. Not realizing that these online students are different than my regular online students. My regular online students are used to kind of being on their own. And so I'm with my students. I told them this week that I'm going to start meeting with them once a week to work through an FRQ with them. So that's actually a success story for me, even though it's a failure story. Is I learned that our students actually do need us. The other thing that, just real quick, depending on what you're hearing back from your students, my students told me this week, not that I do this. I mean, my students are getting all my videos that I'm making, but overall at our school, we got surveys back from our students asking us not to assign videos from other sources. They want to actually hear ourselves teach. And so that's actually a good thing too. If you can find ways to record videos to help, so your students can actually see you yourself doing it versus just throwing up other videos. Even though I say that I have all the videos there for y'all to use, but sometimes our students want to actually hear from this. So that was a couple of different things I heard back from them. I'm going to share my screen with you. And so yeah, so you throw in, did we get any other success stories in here? So Melanie shared, Zoom sessions go through code together. I have small classes and can see their faces and get immediate feedback. Hey, Melanie just was saying almost exactly what I was saying with it. There is something about the one-on-one. I realized that was a fail, and then realized there is something about that my students actually want to get together and see that. And so, and then Susan shared a Google Classroom section where I put in random stuff. I hear like today's stuff. Yeah. So for your students, yeah. So having some type of, your students are just in the dark as we are, and so having a way for them to hear those things versus just our once every once in a while meeting with them. I think it's anything to keep that connection with our students during that time. I think is really good. So if you have any other ones, throw them in there. I'm gonna jump in and share my screen with you, and show you kind of what I'm using and how you can use that and what I've seen be successful. All of this stuff that I'm going to show you today is inside the computer science teachers free trial class. So because all the resources and everything are in there. So I'm just going to show you what I'm doing and what I'm going to be doing over the next 4 weeks. Now, I'm saying subject to change because April 28th, when they release all this new information, I may change up what I'm doing. So it's kind of like a marathon where the race is getting changed as we're running. But what my plan is right now is, so what I'm doing, and what I've done is I'm uploading those a little bit at a time in here. So I have the AP exam prep modified for this year. And then in these, I've been posting these videos. Some of you may have already seen these. These videos here will give you a quick 5 minutes, little summary of what I'm kind of going to cover with you now too. But what I'm doing kind of with my students is, this is based again on a 3 to 4 hour a week. If you can do 3 to 4 hours a week with students, if you're doing less, you might. If you only have 1 hour, I would cut this in half probably. But what I'm doing is I'm giving my students 2 FRQ questions a week. So if you have less time than that, I'd give them 1. Okay. So what I have on here in this first week, so that this week plan is based on 3 to 4 hours, and I have 2 different FRQ questions in here. And what I have, and again, as I go through these, throw questions into the chat. Okay. But what I have on here is Melanie says we can. I don't know what that means. Oh, you can't see my screen. Oh, okay. Let me go back to that. Let me do this again. I'm going to stop presenting. Oh, you can't see it. Okay, so a couple of y'all can see it here. Well, let me present again. Let me tell. Okay, Laura, it says if you're on your phone, it might not work. Anybody else not able to see it? Melanie says she's on a laptop though. Let me know if type in the chat real quick if you can see it. Just say yes. Okay, so okay. So Melanie, yeah. I think everybody else is telling me they can. So yeah, I don't know. But I will have this recording posted in case you don't catch it now. I'll have this recording posted and you can kind of look through it. But I'll also explain this in a way that you can probably just follow what I'm saying I'll kind of explain it in that way too. But I'll have this recording posted within 24 hours on the trainings site. And you can catch it there. I got lost. My students Google Classrooms. Okay. So I was grading stuff before I started that. I'm going to exit that just so I don't get in there. Okay. So here's what I have just for some resources that y'all can use. So in lesson 31, again, all this is on the computer science teacher's curriculum, and I'll explain this so that if you can't see the screen, you can kind of know where I'm at. But I'm on lesson 31 of the computer science teachers in the free trial. What I have posted on here is I have, you good now? Awesome, Melanie. Okay. So the first one, and this is if you're just starting off. Okay. So if you're like, I'm just starting with my students, and I'm just starting from scratch. I don't have the PDF posted here. What I actually have is I have a PowerPoint doing this, but a student video that you can post for your students that walk them through step by step how to solve the first FRQ. And I think this is from the 2007 test, or 2008 test. I have it right here. And I walk them through solving a question together. Now, here's what I do with my material. And this is what I shared this last time, but this is what helps my students. Teaching this has over the years is one strategy that's helped my students jump from the most in their understanding is when I make them grade their own tests and other students' tests. And when I say other students' tests, not other students in the classroom, but students that are the the College Board posts student solutions for these questions that you can go and get. When I made my students graders, it took them, they jumped up. My scores increased from getting, an average of, 2s and 3s to lots of students getting 4s and 5s on my tests. And I really attribute it to the grading. So if you're not doing that with your students and having them grade, what it does is it helps them to see their test from the eyes of a grader and to see what a grader is looking at. They get to see the scoring guidelines and they go, okay, so this is normally what are in all these FRQs. They're looking for loops, they're looking for returns, they're looking for these different things. Once they become a grader and they can see that, they learn how to give the graders what the graders want to see and get more points out of it. So if you're not doing that with your students, I would highly suggest doing that. Plus, if you have them grade your own, I saw somebody on one of the Facebook groups post, how do you grade it when I think they said like 65 students or something. How do you grade when you have that many students? My solution is I don't grade them. I have them grade their own solutions. And I'm going to tell you how I do that. And it saves tons of time. But so if you're just starting off, I have a video here. You can post this video I walk them through solving it, writing their own, and then they solve it. So, and then there's Word documents. You can take these Word documents, copy and paste them into your Google Doc. That's what I do is just take these, copy and paste them in there. And I'm also always giving you the link to the College Board actual site. So these are the PDFs normally that you can use. And I'm taking the year off just so our students don't know, hey, it's on the 2008, because the students have access to these if they go searching for them. So this is the first one I do with them, starting off there. The next one, and this is what I do just in the first week. Okay, so I have them solve one. This first video solves one with them and then has them work on one. On the second day, I post a solution. So this is actually a timed release. So the first day I do the first thing. The second day I time release this. As soon as their submissions are due, I time release these. Here's a video that I have of me teaching them and walking them through that solution. So instead of just giving them a solution and saying, here's a canonical solution, this video will walk them through it and say, this is what you did right, this is what you did wrong, this is how you grade yours, now grade yours. And then here, and I'll show you kind of what this looks like if you've never seen one of these, but the College Board gives these, and they have student solutions from these tests. And I assign my students to go in and grade these. And I would really highly suggest, if you're not doing that, have them grade something where they're going through and they're grading these with the solutions, with the grading solution guides. So I have them go through and do this. And I have them do it for 3 tests. And I make that a 1 day's assignment. 1 day is just grading. You're going to grade yours and you're going to grade other people's. And it does 3 things for them. It helps them to know how to format code. It also helps them to know, this code over here is really horrible looking, let's say. This code's not bad. Let's say it's really bad. And I want to make sure if this is annoying for me, it's going to be annoying for a grader. And I need to be as nice to a grader as I can to get the points that I want. And so I'm going to be clear with them. They learn that. But the third thing they learn that I think is really big is if they don't know how to solve the problem, they get to look at other students' solutions and see what actually works. And not just look at it, but since they're grading it, they're actually analyzing it. And that actually helps them as they move on and do this over and over. And so I'm going to jump back here. So I have them do that. And then I have them write beyond that. And you're like, well, what couldn't they just cheat on that and like write any score they want? What I actually have them do is I have them write a paragraph explaining and say, let me see if I have it. That's the PowerPoint one, the grading document here. And then again, if you use this stuff, you can just copy and paste this directly in. But I have them write a paragraph where, and I give them an example. So I graded this one with them on the video. And then there's a paragraph here explaining why they get each point. So then I have them grade the tests that are on there, but they have to explain why they're given points for each of the people that they're giving points to, and explain why they're giving themselves points. Then for grading these, all you got to do is jump in here and look at how they graded it, and see if if you agree with their grades, but also if they're justifying it, even if they're off a little bit. That's okay. They're actually learning, and it actually keeps them accountable. So they're having to justify even their own grades. They can't just give themselves a 9 out of 9. They're having to justify what they're doing. So I do that. I do that like twice a week. So the pattern for me in a 4-hour week is I will give them. So here I have one question. I give them another. They grade it. Then I give them a second question. On the second one, I kind of step back a little bit. I don't walk through it with them. On this one, I'm just giving them straight the PDF. I do go ahead and take the year out of that again. So again, down here, you can just take these and upload them. This was from the 2009 AP exam, but it's only one question and the year removed. Again, if you want the exact link to the whole thing, it's right there. You can go get it. Your students also have access to this. So if you tell them the year, they're going to be able to find it. But again, if you kind of walk through and do that with them and don't release a solution until the next day, it kind of keeps them accountable. Are you giving the grades on it? So the way that I start off, the first week I don't give them grades. The first week's completion. So they complete it that first week. They get completion grades. Now here's the other thing that I'm doing this week. So the first week is all completion. They do it, they're going to get credit. But I tell them this is building up. In the following weeks, you're going to get grades. So here's what I'm doing with my students this week. This week, so I'm just going to show you. So this week here, question 3, this one specifically methods and control statements, which is one of the questions that'll be on the AP there. I took this from the 2018 exam. So what I'm doing with my students this week is I'm telling them the first question you're doing is a base grade. So I'm giving you, so let's say that they go through and they get a 4 out of 9 when they finish grading this. So, they're like, wow, that's not good. But even though, an IP exam, that could actually be decent, depending on how they're building up. So what I tell my students is you're going to get a base grade here, but then the one that you do the next one that week, so the one that they do question 4, which my students will be doing tomorrow, is all extra credit. So whatever points they earn on this one here, on FRQ4, they can actually throw onto FRQ3. So if they get a 4 out of 9 on the first one, they get a 3 out of 9 on the second one, then they're getting a 7 out of 9 total. And the idea here is, especially with how our students are right now, and I don't know if you're getting directives from your schools right now. Like we got a directive, we just found out Tuesday that our grades, um, the the way they're doing them is actually we're not allowed to give a lower grade this quarter than they got last quarter. So they're like last quarter's grade is kind of their base grade, and they're not allowed to actually get a lower grade than that. Um, so so for as we're kind of doing this with my students, and for me for like this stuff anyways, like if you start giving your students low grades, that'll that will discourage your students, from thinking they can do well in the AP exams. So my thoughts and my idea is to stay away from giving low grades as much as possible. Give them. I want my students to be realistic though. So I always tell my students like, you may fail this AP test, but I'm going to give you extra credit points and ways to make that grade up. So that's not going to be in your grade book because I want them to know. I don't want them to feel like, oh well, I got I got a 3 out of 9, but my teacher gave me a 100, so I'm great. No, we have work to do to get you to where you can pass the AP test. I want them to feel that pressure, but I don't want them to be worried about their grades. So finding ways to give them extra credit. But this is the way I do it is so this week I'm grading this one, the first one, and then I'm making the second one extra credit they can throw on top of there. And there's lots of ways you can do extra credit. Other ways I've done extra credit. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Coding Bat. Anybody ever use anybody using Coding Bat in here? Type that into the chat if you are. I don't see anybody doing that. But Coding Bat, and it's here. I'll type that in real quick. But it's codingbat.com is a resource. There's a lot of different exercises they can do on there that are like building methods. And so I don't know if it's www, but yeah, you can do that's fine. But you can go through and get in, and they can go through and do those. And so I tell my students as many of those they do, they actually built up extra credit points over the year by doing Coding Bat. I also have another training on here. This is another one you can use too if you're looking for just practice things for them. Back in the curriculum over here, just in the training area, I have a training, and I don't know if you've seen it, but if you're using repl.it, if you haven't, go check that out. In that training, there is a class that's already built on repl.it with a bunch of different assignments in there. And you can actually give those for your students to, if you're just looking for practices and ways to do extra credit. But I like to do extra credit points for them to let them know what kind of grade they're getting and then kind of build up their grade with extra credit so it doesn't reflect that in the grade book. But real quick in the chat, let me know what are you guys doing for that? Are you guys kind of giving grades, like hard grades? Are you kind of curving grades? Are you like doing grades based on a curve? Are you what are you doing as you're grading your FRQs to kind of hold your students' feet to the fire? Yeah. So Laura said completion. It can't go down after March 13th. Completion only now. Yeah. So no more test grades. I'll count as daily grades. So when you're giving your FRQs, are you giving those like as grades? Like if they get a 4 out of 9, are you giving like a 50? Are you giving them what? Like, I'm just curious what everybody else is kind of doing with that. Or if you're curving those grades up. But whatever, yeah, you're doing. The big thing I would highly suggest if you want your students to be like ready and like. I mean, here's the deal. Like I'm telling my students, and I'm sure you guys are all doing this too, but I'm telling my worst students, the ones that I'm like, yeah, I don't think you're gonna pass. I'm not telling this to my students. I'm telling them, no, you can pass, because I'll tell you this for those of you just new year, haven't taught very long, but students surprise us sometimes. Like I've had students that I think are gonna make 5s, and they just go in and I had a student one year that I thought would do 5. And then the counselor told me after they taking the test, they actually fell asleep during the test and they got like a 2 on there. And I was like, what in the world? But then I had students who I thought would make 2s or 3s come out with 4s or 5s. So I always tell my students, even the worst ones, I just say, hey, you're going to pass this. If you put in the work and you do what I'm telling you to do, you can pass this. So I would do whatever you can to encourage your students, but assigning them these FRQs, telling them to do them in whatever way they're going to do them on the test. So if you're telling your students to do them in a Google Doc, which mine are doing them in Google Docs and submitting them. If you're telling your students to do that, tell your students to do them in there. But however you're going to do that, if you're using JGraphs, and copy and paste, do that. Whatever you're doing. Now, here's what I'm going to do. So just because time wise we're running low here. But my first week I do 2. My second week I do 2. Here's what I'm doing next week. And this is what I think also really helps for your students is. And I've already told my students this, so I still get to give test grades. So my students are going to have a test grade next week, and but here's what their test grade is I'm going to give them one of the 4 FRQ questions I've already done, so that they've already done. They already have the solutions to. They already know how to do them. I'm going to give them one of those 4, and they're going to have to do that question from kind of like from scratch, without any help and having just to go through them. But what that forces, and I've done this in the classroom before, and what that forces our students to do is, what's going on? Okay, yeah, my wife's saying it. Let me stop sharing that and come back here. But what that forces our students to do is go back and look. It forces our students to go back and look at the questions they've already done, reanalyze them, and make sure that they can answer those questions. So I know that sounds crazy, but like giving students an FRQ they've already done, or saying, hey, one of these 4 we've already done, you're going to see this again for a grade. So go back and study those 4. Make sure you know, make sure you study those. Make sure you understand them. Make sure, and that helps them to understand them. Because if you'll notice as you do these FRQ questions, and you kind of notice a pattern, that a lot of FRQ questions ask similar things. So if they know how to do these similar things, that really helps them. So that's what I'm doing next week for my students. So we've done the first week I do 2 FRQs. The second week I do 2 FRQs. The third week I'm having them do one that we've already done, and it's going to be a test grade. And so for them to be ready for that. And then as we move forward, depending on what they give out, the College Board gives out week 28, or on April 28th, I may change up what we do after that. And I'll keep you guys posted too, again, as we're kind of changing that. But that's kind of what I'm doing as we move forward. But again, I think the big things, if you only have 3 hours, if you only have 1 hour a week, give them one FRQ. Just one FRQ, give them one FRQ. And then the next week, I know it sounds like a waste of time having them grade it, but it helps them to grade it. It'll only take them 15, 20 minutes, but grading an FRQ will help them by leaps and bounds. So have them grade their own FRQ, and then just keep building on that way, on that. Questions, other questions that you guys have? Anything that I didn't, cover, or any like questions specifically that I could help as we move into the next 2 weeks or so? You didn't know about Trevor, about the, what about Trevor? About his thing. By the way, yeah, she said I didn't know about Trevor. Not sure what that means. Yeah. Tree bore? Melody, I don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry. So Laura's asking, are the FRQs going to be still 9 points each, just weighted 65-35? I'm assuming, but I'm not sure. I guess we'll know that April 28th. By the way, if you didn't see the thing by Trevor that the College Board put out Tuesday, yeah. So okay, that's what she's saying. I didn't know about Trevor's webinar. That's what I was going to say. Where will I find details about April 28th? On the College Board's website, I can actually send you a link, and I'll actually email everybody back that was on this webinar a link that you can go and sign up for the webinar from the College Board. It's if you have your school's AP code, you can go in there and you can find their recorded session. Now, what they did in that session is they did like AP Calculus, AP Stats, and AP Computer Science A. So it wasn't all that, but they asked a bunch of questions, and so you can go in there and find out about that. So I'll actually put that link in the, actually, you know what? I may do it right. I think I actually have it right here. I'm going to throw this link in here. And that you can, give me 2 seconds here, guys. Sorry, I don't like to usually pause on these, but I have it here. I know I do. Webinar. But I'll put this link in here if I don't find it right now. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. I think this is the webinar link. Sorry for the delay here. It is the webinar link. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so let me throw this in our chat. So do this, everyone. If you're wanting this link here, this is a link to that webinar. I'll also put that in an email, but if you want to click on that link and go there, that's to the webinar for the updates. Actually, that's April 13th. Yes, that's the link that I just posted. So it was the April 14th webinar recorded, so we can find it somewhere. That's it, I believe. I just grabbed that from my email, but you can go and oh, actually, I wonder if that's the link here instead. Yeah, I think that's the same link I just posted. I'll post this last one here for y'all. Ooh. Yeah, you do have to register. Okay, so yes. So that was to register. This other one I think is the same thing. You do have to register for this. Okay, so you have to register. You have to go in and put, even to see the recorded video, you have to put in your name, and you have to put in, like, you have to find your AP number for your school, and you have to put all that stuff in because they still have that protected. They might have it on the College Board somewhere else, but for right now, that's the only place I know where you can go to do that. So, any last questions that you might have? Okay. Yes. What I'm going to do, yes. Sorry, I know you just kind of jumped on here. Tonight's recording, what I will have it do, I will have it uploaded within 24 hours into the free trial. Let me show that real quick here. I'm going to present that so y'all can see where it's going to be at. By the way, that link there, again, just I told y'all we're running that the free, or we're running the special right now. Again, these trainings we're doing are part of the premium curriculum, and so I have a 3-month. Normally it's $49 a month, but if you sign up for the 3 months, you can get it for $97 for 3 months. It's like $33 a month there. That's for a limited time. So if you want to, and we're going to be doing this throughout the year. We're going to be doing some trainings over the summer too, to help you guys get ready for the next year. So you'll have the curriculum and you'll get some trainings to be able to jump in and run with it. This training here, y'all were asking about it. I will have this uploaded. If you can see, y'all can see my screen, I think, in the free trial right over here. So I will upload it here. I upload all of our trainings where it says training and member calls. I will upload those there in 24 hours. Within 24 hours, I will have it uploaded here. I'll also have it posted. I post these on our Facebook pages as well. And so, so if you're looking for previous member calls, you can find them in here, or previous trainings. But I'll have this posted in 24 hours. Any last questions that for me? Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, we will be planning on doing this again. We'll have more info in 2 weeks as the College Board rolls this out. So on the 28th, we'll be doing this again in 2 weeks. And if you guys have any questions, though, but in the meantime, please shoot me an email, okay? You guys have my email. Shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you with that. If not, y'all have an amazing evening, and have fun with your students. Bye, guys. Have a good evening.